Yeah, Aaron's going to get your file.
We're on the record.
We're on the record in case number 4:17 CR3038, United States of America versus Michael Wayne Parsons. Counsel, please enter your appearance.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Jan Sharp, Assistant United States Attorney, appearing on behalf of the United States.
And John Vanderslice on behalf of Mr. Parsons. Judge, may I take up a preliminary matter?
Sure.
Before we go into anything else. I've spoken with Mr. Parsons about representing him, and I believe that there is a concern related to me entering my appearance and subjecting subjecting him to the jurisdiction of the court. I've talked with Mr. Parsons about, for lack of a better way of saying it, about how he's playing his cards. Of course, he's perfectly entitled to have whatever beliefs that he feels are appropriate for his case and for life, as far as that's concerned. But I've told him that there are traditional ways of doing things on criminal cases in federal court in Nebraska, and that there are untraditional ways, such as what I perceive he's doing on his case. And I told him I've represented folks in the past that are tax protesters, posse comitatus, challenging the jurisdiction of the court, claiming UCC violations, things of that nature. And I told him that what I have seen in that regard over the years is that folks who play their cards that way related to moving forward on their case typically fare very poorly in the criminal justice system. I've told Mr. Parsons that I respect his position to be able to present his case in any manner in which he chooses, but I disagree with the way in which he wants to do it. One of the concerns that has been raised is that if I object, if I participate in the court hearings in the more traditional way, that it subjects him to the jurisdiction of the court. And as a consequence, I think that it's Mr. Parsons' position that he doesn't want me to do anything on his case. And in fact, he said just a short while ago that that's what I've been doing anyway, is nothing. And so I want the court to know, after our first court hearing 2 days ago, and then today, after having a chance to meet with Mr. Parsons, that I don't think that we have a good attorney-client relationship. I don't see that getting better. And I've told Mr. Parsons that he has the absolute right to represent himself, which may be in his best interest. He tells me that he's never asked for the court to appoint counsel for him. And I said, well, that's probably true. I said, typically the way that it's done is that the court gets a financial affidavit from a person just to determine whether or not they can afford their own lawyer, and that's never been done on his case. And I told him typically what happens in the traditional way, that Ms. Baer, the person sitting in the front of the courtroom, doesn't interview with the person to see whether or not they can be released, but because he's got the Tennessee case that he owes time on, that isn't going to happen in this situation. So at this point in time, with that preface, I'm moving to withdraw from Mr. Parsons' case as his legal counsel.
Okay. My memory from the other day is that I said he had not requested counsel, and his response was, I'm asserting all of my rights, which I interpreted to be a request for counsel, and so I did appoint you. However, under the circumstances, you can withdraw as his counsel, but you are appointed as standby counsel. All right? Do you understand?
I do.
I would object to that, because standby counsel is no counsel at all, because I wouldn't have the first idea of what to ask him for him to be able to respond. With standby counsel's only duty to respond to questions, if I don't ask the right questions, I'm at a huge disadvantage. And
then figure out if you want an attorney or not. You haven't asked for an attorney. Until you ask for an attorney, fill out a financial affidavit, you're not getting an appointed attorney. If you don't want an attorney, that's fine.
Okay,
if you do want an attorney, either hire one or fill out a financial affidavit, but you can't have it your way all the time.
Okay, well, I find it interesting that you appointed someone without... I was brought in here Monday, and I didn't know anything about the arraignment until I was brought here. I was given no advance notice, and if I could, there's some questions I've got regarding this whole matter.
No, I'm in charge of this hearing. The hearing begins at this point in time.
Well, I'm
with
not,
the
can I be
excuse me?
heard?
No.
Do I have a right to be heard?
No.
I
You'll
don't
be
have
heard.
a right to be heard?
You'll be heard at the end when I get done with the list of things that this hearing is noticed for. The hearing is noticed for an identity hearing, a hearing on the motion to compel, and a detention hearing.
That's
And
what
so
today
at this
is.
time, Mr. Sharp, you may proceed. I'd like to hear about the identity hearing first.
Your Honor, the United States would call Monty Chaplesky to testify.
Mr. Chaplesky?
Please state your full name for the record and spell your last name for me.
My first name is Monty, M-O-N-T-E. My last name is Chaplesky, C-Z-A-P-L-E-W-S-K-I.
Thank you. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I ask to have access to a pen to be able to take notes with? And
Yes.
Thank you. The ability to actually write stuff down, because right now I'm shackled as such that I can't even barely pick up my glasses.
Okay, it'll take a minute. I'm going to get another key to get that. Okay? So just
My first
the first couple minutes.
Yes, you may.
Get your handcuffs off, yeah. You right-handed or left-handed?
Right.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We did swear him in, correct? Okay, you may proceed.
Sir, can you tell us who you work for?
I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you been so employed?
I've been employed with the FBI for approximately 16 years.
Where are you currently assigned?
Grand Island, Nebraska, resident agency.
Does your area of geographic responsibility also include Arapahoe, Furnace County, Nebraska?
Yes, sir.
Have you been involved in the investigation that led to the indictment? That's okay.
You may continue.
Mr. Chaplesky, have you been involved in the investigation of the matter that eventually led to the indictment of one Michael Wayne Parsons?
Yes, sir.
When were you brought into the case?
I was brought in approximately January 11th or 12th of 2017.
Okay, and how is it that you were brought into the case?
We were brought into the investigation through contact. The FBI Memphis Field Division had contacted our office requesting assistance in locating a fugitive.
And the name of that fugitive was what?
Michael Parsons.
Why is it that the Nebraska FBI offices were being brought into the case?
During the course of the investigation that FBI Memphis was conducting, there were current charges pending in state court in Tennessee against Mr. Parsons. Mr. Parsons had failed to show up for his appearance, and a warrant was issued subsequent to that. There were the FBI Memphis employed some techniques to utilize to try to track and locate Mr. Parsons. That location was near Arapahoe, Nebraska.
All right. Did you actually participate in the arrest of the individual known as Michael Wayne Parsons?
Yes, sir.
What was the date of that?
That was January 12th, 2017.
And where was that at?
That was at the Arapahoe, Nebraska airport.
Okay. And did you personally see a person that was taken into custody that day?
Yes.
Do you see that individual seated in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point to where he's seated and describe what he's wearing?
It would be the defendant, Mr. Parsons. He is wearing an orange pant and shirt. He has glasses, long black hair, and a mustache.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant?
It does.
And did you obtain a name or any identifying information from Mr. Parsons on the date that he was taken into custody?
Yes, sir.
Was it given to you orally or through some documentation that had been seized?
There were documents, to wit, there were several mailings, there were identification cards in Mr. Parsons' immediate location where he was arrested.
First of all, do you have exhibit number 2 in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Can you identify what exhibit number 2 is?
Exhibit number 2 is a photograph of Mr. Parsons, Michael Parsons, that was taken at the Furnace County Jail almost immediately after his arrest and transport to Beaver City, Nebraska.
Okay, and does that fairly and accurately portray the way he appeared on the date of his arrest?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer exhibit number 2.
Any objection?
Objection.
And the basis?
Did you take this photograph, sir?
You may answer.
No, sir, I was present.
You were present when this photograph was taken?
Yes, sir, I was present there when you were being processed.
You witnessed this photograph being taken?
I was there when that photograph...
Did you
and your-
witness this photograph being taken, yes or no?
I think he answered the question. His answer was yes.
Did you witness this photograph being taken? He hasn't answered the question. The fact is he didn't witness this photograph being taken, did you?
Your Honor, I object to that on relevance grounds.
You might have been in the
The question
building.
is whether or not this
might have
fairly
been
and
in the-
accurately portrays it the way he appeared on the date of his arrest.
He might have been in the building, but he didn't witness the photograph being taken, so he cannot identify the authenticity of the photograph where it was taken. That's the
Objection
point.
is overruled. Exhibit 2 is received.
You made reference to the fact that there were also some documentary items that were found in proximity to where the individual known as Michael Wayne Parsons was taken into custody. Do you have exhibit number 3 in front of you?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify what exhibit number 3 is?
It is a photograph of an identification card that states country of Chilcotin identification.
Okay, and does it have a person, and I'm not asking you to read off of it just yet, but does it have a person's name on it?
Yes, sir.
And does it also have a photograph of someone?
Yes, it does.
Have you seen this item before today?
Yes, sir.
Where did you see it before?
At the scene of the arrest.
Okay, specifically where?
It was on a table that was laid out on a table as items were being photographed.
Judge, can I have just a moment, please?
Certainly.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that in the same room where Michael Wayne Parsons was taken into custody?
Yes, sir.
And does that fairly and accurately portray that identification card that you've described?
Yes, sir.
Is it correct that there's also another item that is reflected in there?
Yes.
And what's the other item that's reflected in there?
There is, looks like there are a Walmart gift card, Sam's Club possibly, and then a receipt. It looks like a receipt. I can't exactly tell what it's for.
Of the items that are in there, the one I specifically want to ask about is the Chilcotin identification card. Does that fairly and accurately portray the way it appeared on the date of its seizure, other than the fact that it's in black and white?
Yes, sir.
I would offer Exhibit 3, Your Honor.
Any objection?
And you identify this card as one where it lists...
You need to answer my question. Any objection?
Objection.
What is the basis of the objection?
How did you obtain this photograph?
What is the basis of the objection? You have to give me a evidentiary basis for the objection.
I don't believe he's actually identified how he obtained the photograph.
He need not do so. That is not a requirement.
If I don't know when and how the photograph was taken, I don't know if it is relevant to this case.
Any other objections? You've raised relevancy and foundation. Anything else? Objections overruled. Exhibit number 3 is received.
You've made reference to the fact that this has some writing on it, and just for clarity in the record, how is the nature of the document described on Exhibit Number 3?
The nature is it's stating that it's an identification card in a person's name.
Issued by what issuing agency?
By the country of Chilcotin and the Chilcotin National Congress.
And is it correct that in the bottom right-hand corner there's a photograph?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize who's portrayed in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That would be Michael Parsons.
And is he in fact identified by name on that document?
Yes, sir.
As in what capacity or by what name?
Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, Parsons, P-A-R-S-O-N-S.
Does he have any official designation that's listed on that card?
Yes.
What is that?
It states that the position is ambassador/justice/diplomat.
Is it correct that as part of this investigation there was a search warrant that was seized at a later time?
Yes, sir. The search warrant was served at a later time.
How much later?
That was, as I recall, I believe that was approximately a month and a half later, roughly.
Okay. Where was it executed?
It was executed at the Arapahoe Airport in the north hangar.
Specifically within anything contained in that hangar?
Yes, sir.
Where's that?
That was inside of a Piper, I believe that was a Piper aircraft, a 1964 Piper aircraft.
Why did you seek a search warrant to search that aircraft?
We had developed information leading us to believe there was probable cause to believe that there were firearms in that airplane, as well as possibly documents that would have shown travel to Canada, as well as documents relating to the Chilcotin Nation.
Had you, during your investigation, had you developed any information that tied Michael Wayne Parsons to that airplane?
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that information from?
The initial information came from the FBI Memphis office when Mr. Parsons was not located when he didn't show up for his state trial. When the information was passed to FBI Grand Island, it was not known at the time of his arrest, that he was in an airplane. That information was not known to law enforcement. When it was found out later, I believe that day of the arrest, that he was in that airplane, FBI Memphis then started tracking and trying to obtain documents from both the FAA as well as the previous seller of that. So they conducted an interview of the previous seller of that aircraft.
Do you remember that individual's name?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Did he identify who it was that the airplane had been sold to?
He identified Michael Parsons.
Okay. Did you also conduct any other interviews that tied Mr. Parsons to that airplane?
Yes, there were. I conducted an interview of a gentleman, as I recall, by the name of Stephen Sweat. I believe it was S-W-E-A-T, who, as I recall, had helped purchase or fund the purchase of that airplane with Mr. Parsons.
This was an investigation that ran for a few months, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Did
you also talk to an individual by the name of Anthony Todd Waverka at some point?
Yes.
Who is Mr. Waverka?
Mr. Waverka is a citizen of Arapahoe, Nebraska, and he held several positions in local government. He was a local postal carrier. He was also the president of the Arapahoe Airport Board or Airport Authority.
Did Mr. Waverka explain to you how it was that Mr. Parsons had arrived at the Arapahoe Airport?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you?
Mr. Waverka told us that approximately 2 weeks prior to Mr. Parsons arriving in Arapahoe, that he had communicated that Mr. Parsons had reached out to him, inquiring, I believe, as I recall, I think just about refueling and storage, which is certainly within the position that Mr. Waverka held. Mr. Waverka met Mr. Parsons when Mr. Parsons flew into Arapahoe, and then actually took him into town to buy some supplies and a cell phone, I believe.
Did Mr. Waverka report to you which airplane it was that Mr. Parsons had arrived in?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you?
That was the plane that he indicated was that same plane, I believe it was a 1964 Piper aircraft. It's a small single-engine aircraft.
Okay, the same one that the search warrant was executed upon, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And is it, was there anything of interest that was seized during the execution of that search warrant?
Yes.
What's that?
There was an AR-15 style, 223 caliber rifle with several firearms accessories, scope, light, sling. It was located inside of a bag. There were several hundred rounds of light armor piercing ammunition as well.
And is it that firearm that is the subject of the indictment that Mr. Michael Wayne Parsons is charged in?
Yes, sir.
And that being the same Michael Wayne Parsons that's here in the courtroom today, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I have no other questions on the issue of identity, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Parsons?
Did you actually interview Anthony Todd Weaverick yourself?
I have interviewed Mr. Waverka. Yes.
I'm sorry, how do you pronounce it?
Waverka.
Waverka.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have interviewed him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he ever tell you that he ever saw me in this plane, or just that he saw me there at the airport and there was a plane there?
I don't recall him ever stating that he saw you in the airplane. No, sir.
Okay. And it was, you said a month later when you received the search warrant, roughly February the 12th?
I didn't state February 12th. I believe I said it was a month and a half roughly. I would have to look at the exact dates of the search warrant.
Do we have a copy of the warrant here by chance?
No, we do not. I do not.
I do, Your Honor. I guess I would object to that. I think the only issue we're talking about here is whether or not he's the person who's the subject of the indictment.
Well, the fact that he's bringing up all the contents of this plane and trying to allude to somehow me being responsible for the contents of the plane is at question here, and that's what I'm trying to bring out as the agent, detective.
I'm a special agent, sir.
Special agent has referenced. The interview confirmed that I was not actually in the plane, never seen in this plane, though I was there at this airport. There was a plane there. When that plane was loaded or unloaded is a question, and tying me to this contents of this plane is the heart of this matter that is not going to be solved without proper identification as to...
I think as to the issue that's in front of us right now is the identity issue as to whether you have objected and said that you are not Michael Wayne Parsons, and the question that is currently before the court that we're having the hearing on is whether you are.
Well,
Can you explain how how looking at the search warrant is going to answer or respond to that issue?
Well, it would give me a timetable to look at how much time elapsed from the time that I was arrested to the time they found whatever it is they claim they found. I think the witness has already testified that he's recognized, which I've shown this court before, this is a larger copy of what you have as an exhibit. This is a copy of my identification card, which clearly identifies me as the ambassador of the Chilcotin Nation's country of the Chilcotin. And the reason I emphasize that is that the country of the Chilcotin is within the Chilcotin Nation, as such as if this room was the Chilcotin Nation and this table is the country of the Chilcotin's territory. For that purpose, is that, and you read through it, it's a small version, but this is a larger version. It's the same thing. And it clearly indicates my position.
Okay, let me ask. I think we can shortcut this. I think all you need from this is the date. Can you give me the case number, Mr. Sharp?
I can, Your Honor. Just did that.
I think I can get you from the court's docket the date of the warrant, and that is what you need off of it. And I can say I'll take judicial notice of the date of the warrant, and I'll give that to you, and then we will have this resolved. The date of the warrant. Just tell me the case number and then I can look it
Right.
up.
The reason I'm only going this far, ma'am, Your Honor, is simply because the relevancy to the contents of the plane and identification are totally remote.
Yeah,
Identification.
and I understand your argument being that you need the date. And so,
Your Honor, the date that...
case number.
I'm sorry, the case number is 4:17 MJ 3029.
Okay, just one moment. The date of that warrant was issued was March 20th of 2017. The warrant returned. The warrant was executed on March 27th of 2017, and the warrant return was provided to the court on March 30th of 2017. I believe that answers that particular issue for you, sir.
May I be provided a copy of this warrant?
It's not relevant to this particular proceeding. The
No,
dates,
that's the whole point. It's not the warrant and the contents of the plane. None of that is relevant. I agree, totally. It's
the
not.
dates are what you said you needed, and I've provided you with the dates. You may proceed.
I would move that the court strike all the information regarding the plane and the content of the plane, since the court's already agreed that it is irrelevant to this identification.
It's not probably going to be irrelevant to the next portion of this hearing, which is the detention hearing. May I take you to? We can either put the two hearings together or not.
I would say they're two separate issues, simply because identification is one. And the point of me bringing this up is that the indictment is against an all-capital letter juristic person. The U.S. Printing Style Manual clearly says that in all courts in this United States of America, any name in all capital letters indicates a corporation or a trust, not a live human being. I'm a live human being. This is an upper and lower case, is it not, sir?
You may answer his question.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I can read everything from there, sir.
May I pass this up to the witness, please?
The courtroom deputy will assist you in bringing it up to the witness.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Did you want it marked as an exhibit, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It's a duplicate of what they've already got as an exhibit M3. It's just a larger version, but it's just for... All I'm trying to just point out is that the name is clearly an upper and lower case, which is indicative of a live human being. And what the court's indictment is presenting is for a corporate entity or a trust. Otherwise, it would have that name listed in upper or lower case. And that is not me. I am not that juristic person. That's what I argued the other day.
So your argument is because the caption of this case is, in the caption lists the defendant in all caps, that makes it something other than a individual person? Is that your argument?
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. An
Okay,
individual,
then
no,
please.
ma'am. An individual person is a corporation or trust. It's not a live human being. That's the point. What you're saying is a corporate trust, and you're absolutely correct. They're coming after a corporate trust. I'm not that corporate trust.
All right. You may proceed with your questioning, sir.
You said you had interviewed Steve Sweat.
I conducted a telephonic interview.
Okay. And Steve Sweat, as you said that he had an interest in the aircraft.
Yes, and I would have to refer back to my interview report for the specifics.
Okay. Is he now in possession of the aircraft?
That I don't know.
Okay. And the contents of the aircraft, have y'all been able to identify how it got there at any point?
Can you be more specific on which content, sir?
Any of it.
Would that be the firearm? Or would that be...
Anything at all in the aircraft? Is there any way that you have any proof of how it got in the plane?
Are those the documents that are issued? There were documents that were printed out in the name of Patricia Parsons. Are you talking about those documents?
Well, let's start with the gun. Do you know how the gun got in the plane? If there was a gun there, do you know how it got there?
I was present during the execution of the search warrant and the recovery of the firearm.
Do you know how the weapon got into the plane? The alleged weapon, do you know how it got into the plane?
No, sir.
Do you know when it was put in the plane?
Before we executed the search warrant.
Okay, so in other words, you don't know the exact date or time to any certainty. And earlier you said that this warrant was conducted a month after my arrest, which I thought was February the 12th, and now it's actually a month and more later. It's 2 months and days. That's a long time for a plane to sit there without somebody having the ability to get in and out of it. Certainly it seems it's logical that with the plane was unlocked, I presume. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, first, if I may, Mr. Parsons, you had stated that I stated it was a month. I believe I would have to review my testimony. I believe I thought I said it was close to a month and a half.
Yes, sir.
It was at
That's
some
right.
point in time, so my apologies for being off by another 2 weeks on that. So I can tell you there was a constant dialogue with law enforcement there.
It's 4 weeks difference.
I can do the math on the time. Go ahead.
Okay. We were in constant dialogue with local law enforcement about the security of the aircraft, and there were steps that we were taking to try to proactively ensure that the aircraft was secured prior
But
to the
the
execution.
local law enforcement wasn't aware of the aircraft's existence for what, a month or so?
We being law enforcement collectively, and then specifically the local sheriff's office, was informed. I believe it was roughly around the time that you were being processed that we received the information. So it was the date of the arrest that you had flown the airplane to Arapahoe.
Okay. Who says that I flew a plane to Arapahoe?
That would be Mr. Waverka. Mr. Waverka approached Sheriff Kurt Kapperman when the sheriff and myself and other agents were at lunch, and pulled Sheriff Kapperman to the side and indicated that he understood that you had been arrested, and that the information was in law enforcement and the circles, the social circles in the town of Arapahoe, was that we in law enforcement were looking for a vehicle. As I recall, I believe it was a gray, possibly a Ford Taurus. Mr. Waverka told Sheriff Kapperman, from what I recall, from what Sheriff Kapperman told me, was that Mr. Waverka said there was no car, he flew an airplane. And that airplane, I can tell you, I had witnessed at the time of your arrest when I went in to clear that hangar for any other persons. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so what you just said, I'll rephrase it. If I'm not mistaken, you said that it was actually Sheriff Kapperman that told you what he claims Waverka told him, and not actually Waverka telling you that he ever saw me fly anything. Waverka never told you that he saw me fly anything, did he?
Okay, that's your question, is that the sheriff never...
Did Mr. Waverka personally tell you that he saw me fly anything?
No, sir.
Has
No.
anyone ever told you that they've ever seen me fly anything?
No, sir. Not that I recall.
No further questions.
All right. Any redirect?
You interviewed Mr. Waverka very late in this investigation, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Whether or not he said he had personally seen Mr. Parsons seated in the airplane, did he tell you nonetheless how Mr. Parsons arrived at the Arapahoe airport?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you?
He told us that he had arrived in that airplane in Arapahoe after previously, I believe, landing in Cambridge, Nebraska, and then flying from Cambridge Airport to Arapahoe.
He being Michael Wayne Parsons?
Yes, sir.
No further questions on this issue, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Redirect, please.
No redirect in my
Well,
court.
he brought up another issue.
No, he didn't. You may step down.
Your Honor, I do intend to call him on the issue of detention, so
Yeah, we're taking these one up at one
Okay.
at a time. So,
that's all I have on the issue of detention, Your Honor.
all right. On the issue of
Identity,
identification, do you have anything further you'd like to say, sir, on the issue of identification? Other than what you said the other day, do you have anything further you want to present on the issue of identification?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I have a notice to the court from the Hereditary Grand Chief Stanley Stump Sr. This is actually to Tennessee, but it's dated March 12th of 2016, where it identifies me as a Chilcotin tribal member, the associate justice of their court system, an ambassador, and as he put it, as a diplomat and dignitary of the Chilcotin Nation, Ambassador Associate Justice Michael Wayne Parsons is free from the jurisdiction of all Tennessee and U.S. courts. I'd like to present this as an exhibit.
Do you have any others that you'll be presenting? Because I'm going to have Ms. Bierbauer come and collect them all. Any other exhibits?
Yes. Okay. Yes,
Why
ma'am.
don't we
Would you
just
like-
get them all identified and we'll get them all marked? But
Very
Jerry,
good.
you can stay seated until he's identified them all, and then we'll mark them. Okay, you may
Should
proceed.
I reference a number as we go?
You don't have to. We'll put numbers on, and then I'll identify which number went with which exhibit. But go ahead and explain what other exhibits you'd like.
And given the facts that I'm confined to a jail cell without the access to printers and copiers and such, is there any way I can actually get a copy of the file here? Because
Yes.
I've not been provided that as such. I also have a bio that I've had published for some time, and it lists me also as the ambassador of the sovereign Chilcotin Nation, as well as my credentials in my ministry that I've been in. I will include that for identification purposes. The Declaration of a New Country of the country of the Chilcotin, which was issued to Ben Ki-moon, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, was issued by Grand Chief Stanley Stump Sr., and it was I who presented it to General Ben Ki-moon of the United Nations,
All right.
otherwise acknowledging me as their ambassador. I also have for the court a copy of the Chilcotin National Congress's Universal Supreme Court, a reasons for judgment regarding the review and evaluation and expungement of the case from Tennessee, which everything hinged on from 2009, where they did a review and overturned that decision in their international court. The international court in The Hague already has a copy of this. It's taking longer than one would hope. However, initially it has been said that they are of the same mind that I was falsely charged, falsely convicted, when an unknown man to me and my wife shot 29 times at me and my wife and shot and killed our dog right in front of us. And for me yelling at him to stop shooting, to put his gun down, I was charged with aggravated assault and sentenced to 7 years in prison because I dare expose, at least in Tipton County, Tennessee, how they're rigging elections. There's an amended order that is attached that I will also include that shows the response of the court correcting the date from the original order from 2007. It was a typographical error. I would include that as well. Also listing me, at that point, just an individual, just a human being, not a corporate entity, not a trust, and at that time, not a Chilcotin tribal member nor an ambassador. But it was through that observation and verification of the facts in that case, they discovered someone that they could trust that would stand and fight when others would remain seated and not speak out against corruption. And that's why they've adopted me, and that's why they've made me their ambassador, for no other reason than the fact that I'm brutally honest and I'm not trying to hurt anybody but help people. I also have with me, given the fact that I was assaulted the other day when I was thrown into the floor into the courtroom, I have a letter from a physician for me from January 30th of this year, referencing the fact that I had sustained several broken ribs, malnutrition at the hands of the Tipton County Jail while I was incarcerated there for 6 months, lost significant weight, and that given his knowledge of me and the abuses I've suffered over the past several years with Tipton County that he's treated me for as a naturopathic physician, it was his personal opinion that law enforcement officials in Tipton County, Tennessee have a personal vendetta against Mr. Parsons and that his very life could be at risk if he were reincarcerated at one of their facilities. This again identifies me as someone who has been abused by a corrupted government system.
Can I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you explain to me how any of that is relevant to who you are, which is what we're here for right now?
Well, I'm asserting to this court that I am a live man. Corporations and trusts don't have
I
feelings.
don't doubt that. I agree that you're a live man.
That's the purpose of it.
Okay.
That's it. Just in a nutshell, I'm a live man in a corporation or trust, which is what I'm asserting the United States of America Corporation, which it's a corporation listed on Dun & Bradstreet. I've got the Dunn's numbers here. More than happy to display them to the court if they need it. So I know what's going on. And the fact is, I'm not trying to hurt people. I'm just trying to help people stand on their own feet.
Would you like the courtroom deputy to have those brought up here so that I can mark them and put them into evidence?
Yes.
Or are you done? Are you not done?
I have just a couple more.
Okay.
The next is the Chilcotin Nation letter of appointment and tribal membership. This is where I was duly appointed as their associate justice of their court system, and also made a full tribal member, signed by the Grand Chief Stanley Stump Sr. as well. Next is a letter of declaration, because there's another entity out there claiming to be the Chilcotin National Government. It seems as though groups can create a club and put the word government in their name and expect people to believe that they're in charge. Well, the Chilcotin National Government, on their own website, it lists that they are a society of elected chiefs from 6 other bands within the Chilcotin Nation, and that they're there only to support these other groups, that they do not speak for them. On their own website, clearly says they do not speak for these other entities. They're all independent. That's the key thing. In Native American tradition, it's linear. We're all equal, all of us. No one is above the other. In the white man's world, it's vertical. Everyone has somebody above them that they have to respond to. In our culture, our Creator is the only one above us. That's where this fictitious sovereign citizen colony that the U.S. Marshal Service has hatched comes from. They've accused me and other people that have been adopted into the Chilcotin Nation of being a sovereign citizen group. And that's the biggest lie there is. The Chilcotin are a sovereign people. They're not a colony. They're not citizens. They're not sovereign. Whatever a sovereign citizen is, we're not that.
All right. Do you have any other documents you want to present on the issue of identification?
I have my official birth certificate, which identifies me from the time of my birth in upper and lowercase letters. And it identifies me as a live human being, not a corporation. And as such, this is the document, according to my friend Trey Hargett, who is the Secretary of State of Tennessee.
All right.
That he understands, and I understand what's going on. They've created a trust that funds are drawn from, and that's why it's in all capital letters, because the trust is where the money is. That's what they're coming after, not me. And that's my position, is that the court does not like jurisdiction over trust and corporations. Certainly they do, because the state issues those charters for them to function, but not a live man. This court is a function of a corporation. It is not over me as a live man, and that's why I demand to be released, because the court does not have jurisdiction over live men, but things. I'm not a thing. And the last thing, piece of documentation, this would be an official copy of my ordination as a Native American minister. Again, this shows further my credentials in the Native American community as someone who has studied natural medicine and traditional ways and promotes life. And that's not an easy document to come by. Certainly it may not mean much in this forum. In the Native American world, it's a big thing.
All right. What I'm going to do is have my courtroom deputy gather those from you at this time. I'll have her mark them and put exhibit numbers on them. Is there any objection to any of them, Mr. Sharp?
I would
For
like
the-
to see the birth certificate, but for purposes of this hearing, no. Thank you.
Ms. Milburn?
Can you do it that way, Jerry? Just put one exhibit sticker on it so you don't have to mark them individually. Oh, do you? Okay. All right. Yeah, they're mixed. Okay. Yeah, whatever.
Ma'am, did you? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this would be 10.
Just do them as 101 and put them on together.
But no, I'd like them individually.
You want them individually?
Yeah, that way I can reference them, please. Thank you, ma'am. I apologize, Your Honor. Inadvertently, there was one last document that was somehow covered up. If I may, and it is simply a letter from Grand Chief Stanley Stump Sr. that was written to all United States of America authorities. This court would be part of that. It was written on April 24th of this year, and it references Ambassador and Associate Chief Justice Michael Parsons is a Chilcotin tribal member and member of the Chilcotin National Congress in the country of Chilcotin, formerly British Columbia, Canada. Michael Parsons is not a U.S. citizen. Michael Parsons has diplomatic immunity based on his appointment to the position of ambassador by hereditary Grand Chief of the Chilcotin Nation, country of Chilcotin. And I should stop here and mention that the nation is Chilcotin, T-S-I-L-H-Q-O-T-I-N. They pronounce it Silcotin. The white man says Chilcotin. They have in turn, because of trying to make peaceful relations with this country as well as others, created the country of Chilcotin, which was the new country served upon the United Nations. And it's spelt C-H-I-L-C-O-T-I-N. That's the way that the white man has spelt the native term Chilcotin for over 100 years. Even in the book that most of us read in the 10th grade, Call of the Wild by Jack London, when it references Buck the dog running through the Chilcote territory, that's what this is the Chilcotin Nation.
All right.
Sorry, Approach, Judge.
Yes, you may. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beerbauer. Thank you, Mr. Vanderslice.
It's sitting right here in front of me. And this was the one that Your Honor will probably want to see. This is the one from the U.S. State Department, or as they refer to it, the Department of State. And this is the confirmation of my A1 diplomatic visa. They have me listed as ambassador and public minister for the country of Chilcotin, Chilcotin Nation. And unfortunately, as you'll notice, they spell the name in all capital letters because the way Washington works, everything they do is in all capital letters. Now, I'm not stipulating that I become an entity because of their writing on this in no certain terms. I'm just clarifying that they have been so conditioned to having everything set up for this corporate trust system that even in their visas, that's how they have it listed, though they recognize that I am not a corporate entity or a trust. That's just the way their system is set up. But this is the printout from their webpage. It's still on the website, but this is a verification of a confirmation of a A1 diplomatic visa with all the numbers attached. And I would also present that as an exhibit of proof of my credentials as an ambassador of the Chilcotin Nation, country of the Chilcotin.
All right.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes, you may. I believe that'll be exhibit number 113. So we have a gallery of people back there that are waiting for their 3 o'clock and 3:30 hearings. I will state, and one of them being rather ill. What I'm going to do is we are going to conclude the identity hearing, take a brief break, let those folks get done, and then we'll finish this up. I happen to know Ms. Milburn is rather ill because she's been ill for a few days. So hang on, we're not quite done with this hearing. All right. Exhibit number 101 is the Chilcotin National Congress number 8296. Exhibit number 102 is the Ambassador Michael Parsons ACJ bio. Exhibit number 103 is the June 20th, 2016 letter from the Chilcotin National Congress. Exhibit 104 is the document filed on January 9th of 2017, which is a reasons for judgment from the Chilcotin Nation. Number 105 is a from also it's dated, stamped, dated March 20th of 2016, the Chilcotin National Congress document signed by the Honorable Chief Judge. Number 106 is a document signed by Dr. Bradley Frieza, dated January 30th of 2017. Number 107 is the Chilcotin National Congress document filed stamped December 13, 2015. Number 108 is a letter of declaration.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's 2015?
Yeah, it says 2015. 108 is a document signed on March 6th of 2016 by the hereditary Grand Chief of the Chilcotin National Congress. Number 109 is the document dated June 13th of 2013, which is the Indigenous Traditional Organization and Native American Church of Nemanha. Number 110 is the birth certificate of the defendant. Number 111 is the identification card of the defendant that was issued by the Chilcotin Nation. Number 112 is a document dated April 24th of 2017 by the Chilcotin National Congress and signed by its hereditary Grand Chief. Number 13 is a confirmation of non-immigrant visa application. Let's see if it's got a date on here.
I think it's around January
completed.
19th.
It was the document. The confirmation itself was completed on January 19, 2017.
Yeah, it takes them about a month to complete those things.
Any objections to exhibits 101 through 113 for the identification hearing?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Exhibits 101 to 113 are received. Any additional evidence, sir, on the issue of identification?
No, ma'am.
All right. Anything in reply?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I do find that the defendant who is seated here is Michael Wayne Parsons, based upon the evidence that has been presented at this time. We're going to recess at this point in time as to this case number and move on to case numbers, the cases that were supposed to be before me at 3 o'clock and at 3:15, and we'll reconvene as to Mr. Parsons, the detention hearing, and the motion to compel immediately thereafter. We are in recess.